The countdown to terror has begun.
The signal's getting stronger now. It won't be long.
Come quick! The monster done ate my pappy!
Do you really think this was a bear duck?
Highly unlikely.
First man on Mars. Once he was human.
There's something shiny in the rock. This is really starting to sting.
Now a bloodthirsty monster, killing and devouring the young. And not so innocent.
Let's take a look at this, huh?
I'm gonna blast the thing back to hell.
Oh, shit.
First man on Mars.
You mean there's aliens out here? Shit, I don't want to get abducted and anal.
This film is not rated.
The following feature has been rated R by the Motion Picture Association of America.
Roger Corman is definitely a legend.
Roger was always called the king of the B. He was making drive-in movies, and he was making low-budget movies.
He's such a great producer because he's famous for keeping things on budget and making $1 look like $10.
He gave a lot of people a start, whether it was Marty Scorsese or Francis Coppola or me.
Peter Bogdanovich,
Jack Nicholson, James Cameron, Ron Howard,
Joe Dante. The whole schmear, the whole business is populated by people who went through the Corman School. It's quite a legacy.
Right now, everybody reach for the nightgown of the Lord. Reach!
This is Bloody Mama, the incredible saga of Ma Barker and her boys, the most bloodthirsty killers in the history of crime. America's reigning young master of terror has created the ultimate in comic horror. The ultimate killers, the ultimate mother.
They began in the water. They're not human, but they hunt human women. Not for killing, for mating.
It's my theory that these creatures are driven to mate with man now.
Any time you stop, they will find you. Humanoids from the deep.
Okay, Professor. How are the crabs blowing up the island?
I am not sure. But imagine they are able to send out arcs of heat. They are packed with it.
Daring skin divers brave undersea perils that stagger the imagination.
Turning upside down, going in circles, pulling my head around.
What is it thing, Hauser? Proto-bead what? Just stick with your charter, Colby. Just figure out a way to trap it. You figure it out. I'm not going back in there.
I think we should try to communicate with it. I know it's far-fetched, but it might work.
Hey, hell!
The Hellcats. Slugging, scratching, clawing. Are they girls or devils? This is Sheila, their leader. She'll cut you down or turn you on. Candy, violent, vicious. Linda, beautiful, brutal. Rita, leather on the outside, all woman on the inside.
Halsey was working on something big. Cornerstone technology.
Where our greatest creations meet our deepest fears.
People are so anxious to change their faces. What about their personalities, their very souls?
You are about to go beyond that limit.
The new you from Eunice.
But even the greatest discoveries
You have a special brain, a very special brain.
have a price.
You need those numbers.
Your life.
You want him brain dead.
Who said anything about brain dead?
Who the hell are you? What do you want?
You could be the patient, and Halsey could be the doctor. Just give us those numbers, Halsey.
Just burn out the core.
He's in the hospital.
A little shock therapy will help you relax.
Good evening, fiends, and welcome to the Horror Mike Show on this fine and fiendish Friday evening. I'm your host, Horror Mike, and tonight it's all about Roger Corman. My good friends, Roger Corman, of course, just passed away a little while back, less than 2 weeks ago at the ripe old age of 98. And he left behind a B-movie legacy that spanned nearly 70 years, folks. Just about 70 years making low-budget films, himself directing, then producing, and executive producing. And tonight we're going to look at some of those flicks. You just saw a trailer mashup that I put together featuring a ton of the stuff that he directed, produced, and or executive produced, including Attack of the Crab Monsters, Humanoids from the Deep, the last one, which is one you may not have seen, called Brain Dead, based upon a fantastic Charles Beaumont screenplay starring Bill Pullman, Bill Paxton, and George Kennedy, as well as Bud Cort. Incredible cast. Great freaking movie. Highly recommended. It is on Tubi. We are going to take a look at that one tonight. Of course, first up, you saw a trailer for my film, First Man on Mars, folks. Yes, First Man on Mars, which is currently available on my website. I just dropped a link in the chat. There it is. You can buy it directly off my website or on eBay or Amazon. And the links are there on my website. So check it out. I think you'll have a great time watching the film. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll kiss $10 goodbye. Let's put it that way. Now on Blu-ray, First Man on Mars. You may have noticed, yes, it is the Foster oil can of joy I'm drinking tonight. And, you know, without further ado, folks, everyone in the chat, whatever you're drinking, let's hoist it up and have a drink for the great Roger Corman. Good Lord. Oh, folks, a few things have been happening, okay? And they've been actually pretty good amidst the turbulent times that we are currently experiencing. But first, I am going to direct your attention, once again, just for a little bit, to my sponsor, who is TooManyComicMagazines.com. I just want to show a couple of things to you here, because they're pretty damn groovy. Now, oh, wait a second. This is not the correct page. What the hell is going on here? Maybe it's 51. Strange. Oh, there it is. All right. I don't know what the hell happened there. Yeah. Okay. So this is the store that I have bought magazines from in the past. These are all illustrated science fiction, fantasy, and horror magazines. And for instance, check these out. Now, these are special USA issues. These do originate from France. They are in the French language. Typically speaking, on toomanycomicmagazines.com, you're going to find illustrated magazines that are in French, Spanish, Italian, and German. That's typically what they are. The great thing about it is that you're going to find a lot of art from a variety of artists, including Roger Corman. Now, we're looking at 3 Roger Corman covers right here, folks. This is one of my favorites. Check this out. This was a book. Once again, science fiction book club cover. And I want to say it was an L. Sprague de Camp collection way back in the day, like back in the 70s, early 80s. Yeah, this is dated 1977, so late 70s, early 80s. Fantastic Corman cover. And it is here on Special USA issue number 13. Now, sadly, that is sold out. These things tend to go. Of course, you know, Corman covers are going to go quickly. Typically, this is a nice one right here. L'Eco de Savanes. You may have seen the video I just did on the Corman Wrightson issue, which is really quite cool. This is another, folks, this is a Corman cover that I've never seen before. This is from 1979. And yeah, until I saw this particular magazine, I had never seen this Corman cover. And it is fantastic. And that's what I find a lot on Too Many Comic magazines, is that he's just, that they, you know, the Europeans would do a lot of covers for their various illustrated magazines that were completely different from United States releases. Okay. And these, you may recognize the one on the right, the dinosaur creature that's eating people. That is a cover from Hot Stuff, which was a originally a comic book, kind of a quasi underground comic book in the United States. Came out late 70s, early 80s. And so it made its way to L'Eco de Savanes, as you can see, issue number 20. These are Corman covers as well. Rather incredible. And still a few more. Now, this is the one, of course, that I did the video on. Issue number 19 with that great John Carter of Mars 2-page spread cover. That video is on my channel, folks. If you're interested, check it out. It has art, of course, by Roger Corman. He also adapts a fantastic Lovecraft story in this particular issue, and Bernie Wrightson as well as Nestor Redondo are in this particular issue of Echo de Savanes. This is another one. Fantastic Corman cover. You may recognize that. That is from Rolf. Now, Rolf goes way on back to the early 70s. That was an early Corman underground. I do have that particular first printing of Rolf in underground comic format. But this cover was never used at that time. So it is rather, it's a totally great freaking Corman cover. For another great Corman story. Of course, Rolf is fantastic, highly recommended. Unfortunately, that is also sold. A lot of these things just get sold really quick, folks. You know, I mean, a lot of the Corman stuff is going to tend to go rather quickly. The prices are good on these, you know, $15, $13, depending on the condition of the particular magazine and so forth. But once again, when you look at it, I like the way he's got it laid out because he shows you really good photos. He explains this is in good condition. G for good. It's $15. And then he's got photos of the interior. And he also shows any inconsistencies or, whatever. Like, for instance, you can see some staining here on the cover. Maybe there's a nick right there. So that he's showing you close-ups of, some of the various things about that. There's some black and white Corbin. What could be studies of a large-chested woman running, folks. Corbin. This is the type of stuff that I just don't see in, U.S. versions of these magazines. So in any case, there you go. Just thought I'd show you these because I was taking a look at some Corbin stuff, and they've got a freaking ton of Corbin available on toomanycomicmagazines.com. I'm going to drop the link if you guys want to check this out. It is page 51. I found these. Very good indeed. So that is Too Many Comic Magazines, folks. Check them out. The one thing, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I've got, of course, a ton of issues of Heavy Metal magazine, 1984. I've got a few issues of Epic. All of these are in English language, right? Well, the reason why I get issues like L'Echo des Savanés and Metal Hurlant, which are in French, or Totem, fantastic. That was like the magazine that came out of Spain that was Metal Hurlant. That was basically what it was in the late 70s going into the 80s. But the reason I get them is that, typically speaking, the printing is superior. When you're speaking of art, intricate art, line art, colors, and so forth, there's really nothing that, for example, beats Metal Hurlant. It really is. I can show you side by side comparisons. I've done these comparisons in my videos. You can watch them on my channel. And this is why I get those issues, because I don't speak French. I do speak Spanish and I can read Spanish, which is great. It's a plus. I tend to gravitate towards Spanish language magazines on this site. But if I have the English language versions, as far as Metal Hurlant or L'Echo des Savanés, which is in French, I don't need to speak it because I know what the story is. I'm getting it for the art, for the reproduction quality. That's the name of the game, folks. If you're seriously into a lot of the masters, and I'm talking Frank Frazetta, Richard Corbin, Bernie Wrightson, Nestor Redondo, you go down the list, Droulet, Philippe Droulet, Mobius, Serge Clerc. You're going to get the best reproductions with these European magazines. That's all there is to it. I'm not dissing the Heavy Metal, but they come up a little short on the reproduction end of things, unfortunately. So that's where the European magazines kick in. That's why I like, ordering them and reading them. So check out toomanycomicmagazines.com. I think you'll be glad that you did. So that is that, folks. And what else do we have on the agenda before we get to the chat? Let me just take a look here. Okay, I've got Corman lined up. That's good. Yeah, let's head on over to the chat right now and see what the heck is going on in Chatland. Chatlandia, folks. Eric Boyd is here with us. Hello, Eric. How you doing? My good man. Radamus is here. Hail, Horror Mike. Hail, hell all in the chat, or hail, or hell for that matter. Hello, Radamus. How you doing? I am one of us is here. Hello. I am one of us. Great to see you. Apex Comics is here. Hello, Apex. Great to see you, man. Camp Crystal Lake is here. Hello, R. How you doing? Radamus. Apex. We got Werewolf by lunchtime in the chat, folks. Hello, Werewolf. How are things in the future? Over there in Australia, folks. He is 13 hours ahead of us here in the States. So I often ask him for stock tips. That's what I'm saying right now. Eric says, boobies and Bill Paxton for the win. Yes, there's plenty of that tonight, folks. Boobies and Bill Paxton. And not necessarily in that order. Eric says, oh yeah, when the exploding sleeping bag appears, time to start the show. Indeed it is. Radamus says, White Mama, Black Mama was great. Didn't waste any time with the TNA. It doesn't. It doesn't mess around, folks. White Mama, Black Mama, which is also a Roger Corman produced film. It's not on the chart tonight because I just did it, last week. So I'm not going to repeat a film so quickly, but it's on Tubi. It's a Roger Corman produced film. There are dozens of Roger Corman films on Tubi, and Black Mama, White Mama is one of those. And definitely worth checking out. Once again, Eddie Romero directed, produced by John Ashley. Believe it or not. Radamus says, rest in peace, Mr. Corman. Thanks for the memories and films. Indeed. I second that. Lord, man. There we go. Geez, he was 98. Time goes by so fast indeed. 98, he was just shy of 100. That dude got a lot out of that old bucket of bones, I'll tell you. Right there, folks. Incredible. 98 years old. And folks, there is the link once again to toomanycomicmagazines.com. Check them out. Apex says there needs to be a return of TNA in movies again. It helps fill those theater seats. Woohoo! We love you, Roger Corman. Thanks for entertaining us. TooManyComicMagazines.com. That is it. Apex says Crab Monster had telepathy in that Corman movie. Yes, they did. They did. And as a matter of fact, I think they could hear them talking, right? Okay, Professor, how are the crabs blowing up the island? That's one of the classic lines from Attack of the Crab Monsters, folks. Good Lord. Steve Harrison is here. Rip Roger. Hey, gang. All right, folks. Okay, so here's something that I want to do. I think it's going to be rather fabulous. Hear me out on this. Okay, so I ran across an ad the other day for a late 70s, perhaps early 80s advertisement for, remember the Science Fiction Book Club? Well, the Science Fiction Book Club still exists, folks, but it sucks today. But it used to be great. Okay, back in the 70s, I know I was a member, at least off and on. It was great. You join up, and it was like, something to the effect of, get 10 books for $10, something like that, or very cheap. In other words, 10 hardcover book club edition books, science fiction books for $10. And then, of course, you had to buy 5 more at their regular prices. Something like that. That was kind of the deal with it. But I started thinking about that. Like, yeah, Sci-Fi Book Club. Yeah, that was really great. And then I thought, yeah, well, that is something that's very interesting. But, for me, folks. I am Horror Mike after all. I really love, my favorite subgenre is sci-fi horror. That's my thing, man. I love it. It's always been my favorite. And it just kind of like less of the supernatural elements, more of the science-based horror elements. That's just what I dig. And so I thought, hey, wait a second. Science fiction horror book of the month club. Wait a second. And then I thought, well, yeah, it's a cool idea, but maybe a little dry. Like, for example, hear me out, folks. Like, there could be arguments as to what people consider to be sci-fi horror. Let's just get that out in the open right now. For example, books. Let me bring this out. Folks, The Island of Dr. Moreau is absolute sci-fi horror. If you've ever read it, if you've ever seen any of the movies, this is sci-fi horror. This is H.G. Wells at his peak. Fantastic science fiction horror novel. Island of Dr. Moreau. It is, I believe, spawned 3 adaptations. The best of which is, in my opinion, Island of Lost Souls from 1932, directed by Earl Kenton. There have been 2 more adaptations, one in the 70s starring Burt Lancaster and Michael York. And then, of course, the disastrous 90s version that was originally directed by Richard Stanley. He got the boot. They brought in John Frankenheimer. He did finish the film. And that was the Island, I think it's still called Island of Dr. Moreau, starring Marlon Brando and Val Kilmer. Now, the 70s version with Burt Lancaster and Michael York is still on Tubi, just to let you guys know. And I believe this version, The Island of Lost Souls, starring Charles Laughton, is on YouTube. You can watch it for free on YouTube. This is what I was thinking, sci-fi horror book of the month club. So here's how it would go. For example, we have a book, Island of Dr. Moreau. Okay, this is also available online. You can read the book online. It's, as a matter of fact, I've got a link. I'll bring it up. I feel that this might be a cool idea. Let me know in the chat. Here's how it would work. In the first place, it would have to be sci-fi horror, right? A book or a novel or a novella. It could be a novella, which would be, anything from basically from like 60 pages to about 150 pages. And then beyond that, it becomes a book, a novel. So novella or novel. And the thing is the book must have had at least 1 film adaptation. So when we choose the one Friday night, like we just take like 30 minutes or an hour out of the live show and talk about the book and the movies of the particular story. For example, Island of Dr. Moreau. We talk about the book. The book is like 200 pages. Yeah, it's like 200 pages, folks. It's, it's a fairly quick read. It's fantastic. Of course, the movies are great. If you've ever seen all 3 of them, I think are really have good aspects about all of them. They've got something. Even the Marlon Brando version from the 90s has got something going for it. But so in any case, so here's how it would go. For example, we've got Island of Dr. Moreau. And then I say, like, okay, well, we've got the film adaptations as well. So I say a month from now, on that particular Friday night, a month from now, we talk about the book and how the adaptations of the book compare to the book for like 30 minutes or an hour out of the show. I think it could be, look, there's a ton of stuff. There's so many great sci-fi horror novellas or novels. I've got a list, folks. Ones that you're going to dig the hell out of. That does include Lovecraft, by the way. But if you're wondering, it's still, as far as like, what is that line between science fiction and science fiction horror? Here's a pretty good example. The Demolished Man by Alfred Bester. Now, this is a fantastic novel. And this was actually the first Hugo Award winner for Best Novel. I want to say it's like, I'm going to put it like 1954, something like that. It's never been made into a movie, and it is not a horror book. It is a science fiction novel. You know, there are some disturbing things about it, but it's, yeah, of course, it's science fiction, you know, dystopia. So, yeah, there are a few nightmarish aspects, but it was never, you know, there's no real horror element to it. But if you look at something like, for example, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is absolutely science fiction horror. There is no doubt about that. It's a scientist. He creates a living being from dead people. So that's science fiction, solid. The horror, of course, is the creation of the creature and what happens after that. So that is a sci-fi horror novel. And that could be the first one. As a matter of fact, I think it is the first one ever written. So that has spawned how many adaptations? Oh, good Lord. You know, but as far as like the main Frankenstein story, probably a dozen film adaptations of Frankenstein. So that's one we would definitely cover. There's no doubt about it. It is solid sci-fi horror, folks. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So yeah, and there's a ton. I don't want to give them away here, you know, give the list away, but it would also include Lovecraft, obviously. There are some killer novellas that he wrote. It would also include some other stuff that I think you would find quite interesting, that some you know of, definitely, some you may have never heard of, but that were adapted into films as well. Feature-length films, by the way. So that's the idea. So let me get back to the chat and see what the hell people think. Let me know. Okay, so it did spawn some activity here. See what the hell's going on. Okay, first, yeah, Eric says I was part of the science fiction book club as well. Wished I had kept all those books. Yes. Yes, of course, Frankenstein is sci-fi horror. Great examples, Horror Mike. Are we not men? Of course. We are Devo, by the way. Alien is one. Yeah, but it wasn't originally a book. It was actually a screenplay written by Ronald Shusett and Dan O'Bannon. It's got to be from a novel or a novella, folks. That's the thing, and it must have been adapted into at least one film. Jacob is here. Hello, Jacob Bernowski. How are you doing? The Horror Mike novella list. Shadowhawk Talks is here. Hello, Shadowhawk Talks. How are you doing? Camp Crystal Lake says, I think it's a great idea. I love books and movies. Excellent. Excellent. I'm getting some positive vibes, folks. I'm getting some positive vibes. This is good. I think that let's see here. I don't know. Sorry. I accidentally sounded like. Okay. Everybody's saying their highs. Radamus is saying, I'm reading H.P. Lovecraft at the Mountains of Madness. That was nearly adapted into a film, of course, by Guillermo del Toro, but didn't make it. Mountains of Madness, the manga, translated by Galtanab. Well, he drew it, right? He's the artist, Galtanab. And yeah, Radamus, I don't know if you're familiar with there's this group that does quote unquote motion comic adaptations. They've taken original narrated H.P. Lovecraft novellas, and they've taken the Galtanab art. They've merged them into motion comics, and they are on YouTube. I don't know if you're aware of that. It's quite cool. A lot of these books, well, yeah, there is a comic connection as well, but the main idea being is that you have your novella or your novel, and it must at least have been adapted once as a feature film, because at least that gives us something where we can compare and contrast. And we're not getting into like Stephen King freaking 800-page wank offs. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't have anything particularly against Stephen King, but I mean, the guy can kind of, wank it for a while there. And that's why he comes up with like 800 pages, and like 400 pages is, wanking. That's what I'm talking about right now. Nothing against him. Nothing. He's done some fine work. But for example, great example, Demon Seed, Dean R. Koontz, adapted into what I consider to be a really great film, science fiction horror film, Demon Seed. There's one, I think that's one we would tackle. That's one I haven't even read it. I've never read the Koontz novel. I've read some of his other novels. Once again, it's short. I think it's like 250 pages, folks. And I'm thinking that we could start off with, H.G. Wells' Island of Dr. Moreau. The great thing about this one is that it's got 3 film adaptations. And as I was saying, of course, the first one is the 1932 Island of Lost Souls. Now, this one was originally banned in the UK for about 20 years for its depiction of vivisection. And it's the best as far as I'm concerned. People may argue, but this is the one, in my opinion, and I'm pretty damn sure it is available on YouTube for free. But let me bring this up. Okay, here I am. I'm going to drop this. I'm dropping this link in the chat, folks. Okay, that is, oops. Yeah, there we go. There is Gutenberg.org. Now this is a great place to find books on, where you can read a ton of books online. Obviously with Island of Dr. Moreau, man, you go to your secondhand bookstore, your used bookshop, you can find a ton of these. You can probably find it like in Goodwill or, whatever, cheap, for a few bucks, or you can just read it for free online. This is the one. So if you're interested, if you don't have it in book form, I love it too, because this is whatever copy this is an old freaking copy of Island of Dr. Moreau. Look at that, the cover. Now, of course, it's the actual book. It's not the dust jacket, but that is great. So yeah, it's on here, man. You get the whole darn thing. And as I said, it is, it's 185 pages, folks. Perfect. As a matter of fact, I think that's one of the reasons why the Island of Dr. Moreau translates more or less so well to the screen, is the fact that it is rather short. Look, when you're talking about a 90-minute film, 185 pages in reality is too long. It's an absolute fact. What you really want is kind of apples to apples. You want something that's really like a novella that's 70 to 100 pages. That would be your optimum if you wanted to completely adapt that particular story, right? Without leaving out major scenes or characters and so forth. But in this case, with Island of Dr. Moreau, I think all three of the screenplay adaptations were done very well. It's just that I have a thing for The Island of Lost Souls, the first one, the 1932 film. So the idea, folks, is that we are at the 31st of May. So we'll go, June 28th. Mark that on your calendar, June 28th. If you're interested. So that Friday night, when I do the Friday live show, Friday night on June 28th, we're going to take like maybe an hour out of the live show to talk about The Island of Dr. Moreau and the subsequent films that were adapted from H.G. Wells' masterpiece. One of his, look, he wrote a lot of great stuff. There's no doubt about that. War of the Worlds, which is, to me, is more science fiction. Once again, it's really great and everything, but that, to me, I just consider that science fiction, alien invasion type of thing. Some people may argue, but Island of Dr. Moreau it's pretty scarifying, folks. Let me get back to I know I've missed a few things here. Ooh, now that's interesting. Camp Crystal Lake comes in with Blade Runner. Of course, that was originally the Philip K. Dick novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? And the thing is that, once again, I consider that more just science fiction. It's not really horror. I mean, there are, you know how it goes. In science fiction, there are things that might be horrifying in it, but that's not a common thread in the book itself. Like, for example, the Andromeda Strain. Now, it's really intense. The book, the Michael Crichton book, is really intense, and it is kind of scary occasionally because it's about an alien spore that comes down, that attaches itself to a satellite, lands in a small town and just wipes out everybody, and it's multiplying at a frightening rate. And so that is, when you think about that, you're like, holy shit, that could really happen. That's scary as hell. But at the same time, that's science fiction. I don't consider that to be horror because it's based upon, strict science in the first place. It's not like the spore turns into a monster that starts eating people or something. It's really just Michael Crichton being a scientist and saying, well, what would happen if alien spores were introduced to, people on Earth, a certain type of alien spore? What would it do? And that's how I kind of think about Blade Runner. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? It's a great novel. I love it, but I think it's more science fiction than horror. What was, of course. Yeah. Well, obviously, Who Goes There? And we're going to do that one as well, Steve. That is coming up, folks. John W. Campbell. As a matter of fact, they're planning on another movie. I don't know if you guys realize that they're supposedly going to do the film called Frozen Hell. Now, that is based upon the extra 45 pages that they unearthed several years ago from the original John Campbell manuscript of Who Goes There, which was the basis for The Thing from Another World and John Carpenter's The Thing. So they found another 45 pages, and I've got the novella. It's the Frozen Hell, and it's great. I love it. And the way I look at people making movies nowadays, I just like dread when they say they're going to freaking do it. I just think it's going to be shit because, look at what they do to films. Typically nowadays, oh my God, it's horrifying. So at least with Who Goes There, you have the Thing from Another World and John Carpenter's The Thing to compare. And that's definitely one that's going to be coming up. Yeah, once again, I think that's just science fiction. And War of the Worlds, I would consider science fiction too. You know, it's it's just one of those things. It's kind of like it's a trick. It's slightly tricky, but when we're talking about novels like Island of Dr. Moreau or Frankenstein, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, those are just obvious. They hit you right in the head. You know, these literally deal directly with horror themes, like within the genre itself. And it gets slightly tricky, you know, with stuff like War of the Worlds. But if you read the novel, it's about an alien invasion, right? To me, it's more like science fiction. What would conquering aliens do? How would they react to humans? How would they treat them? How would they perceive humans? And so forth. And in that case, not too well, obviously. Yeah. And it's intense, it's dramatic, it's scary, but I just don't think it's science fiction horror. Lovecraft, I mean, you could look at several Lovecraft novellas, for example, that are definitely scary as hell. And I think, who was that brought up At the Mountains of Madness? Yeah, Radames. That's a great one. You know, it's too bad that good old Guillermo del Toro, he almost did it. He almost made that damn movie, you know. But I want to mention something else too, because when Radames mentioned that, the Galtanab graphic novel, I think it would be fair to also say, okay, well, if there's a particular story that originated from a graphic novel, not a comic book story, not a 7-10 page story, I'm talking about a graphic novel, it would have to be like 50 to 100 pages in order to be, you know, like something we could sink our teeth into. That was adapted into a film that was sci-fi horror. I think that should be fair game too. That should be fair game as well. Jacob says wank offs. Oh my God. Camp Crystal Lake says Island of Dr. Moreau, brilliant book and movies. Yes, I concur. I think that's it's kind of like the reason why I wanted to lead off with that. It's not the earliest. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is, well, it's the first. You know, she did it. She was the one, folks. But Island of Dr. Moreau, I think, is to just begin with, might be a little easier, only because of the fact that it's got the 3 movie adaptations. And I think it's also shorter than Frankenstein as well. But I don't know. It just seemed like one that, you know, would be kind of a good one to test the waters. Let's put it that way, to see if we could successfully talk about the novel and the adaptations and see how it works. Because look, yeah, it's, you know, it's a novel or a novella, and then there's the film. So things can get they could get a little complicated. There's no doubt about it. I mean, when you look at the 3 adaptations of the H.G. Wells novel, and this is the first one, of course, Island of Lost Souls. Look at all 3 of them. They're really quite different, right? This is the most different of the 3, and I think this is the one that works the best. But the other 2, you know, you look at all 3 of them, and they're just like they approached the material in a different manner. And so that's something. It's comparing and contrasting the films versus the book. You know, you got your basic book. H.G. Wells he was a master storyteller. So what we're saying is like, okay, here you have a master, you know, he's a writer, an absolute master of science fiction and a bit of horror. So how do these films stack up to the master? That's really what I'm trying to get at here. I mean, how much better or how much worse were the film adaptations? What did they lose? What did they leave out from this novel that they should have kept in? Because they did. I guarantee you they left stuff out. So these are things we can talk about. And as I said once before, it keeps it from being dry, because if we're just talking about a novel, that it can get a bit dry. But since we're talking about novellas and novels that had to have had at least one film adaptation, we can, compare and contrast with the novel and the film or films. Eric says, I agree with that assessment of King's tendency to extend pages. I can cite examples that would be too long-winded. Yes. Wanking off to misery doesn't sound like much fun. Gutenberg.org, folks. That is, where they have, there's other resources to find Island of Dr. Moreau, but that's the one I typically go to if I don't have something and I want to read something. I'll go to Gutenberg, old Gutenberg.org. There were some sci-fi horror stories by Edgar Rice Burroughs, but not on film. Apex says, I'm shocked that there's not a movie adaptation of horror stories by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Yeah, that is, I don't know really what to say, I mean, maybe there are and we just don't know about them. I don't know. Or, maybe somebody did like short films that just never got distributed, stuff like that. That happens. Radama says, I added your recommendation at the Mountains of Madness anime to my playlist on YouTube. Thank you, Horror Mike. Wow, it's 4 hours long. Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes, indeed. Man. Okay, so that's the one, right? That is the motion comic adaptation, Radamus. Wait until you check that out. It is absolutely fantastic, folks. If you have not seen and heard this particular adaptation of At the Mountains of Madness, you got to check it out on YouTube. It's Matthew M. I don't know. I keep forgetting his freaking Matthew something. MS Matthew, something like that on YouTube. Yeah, okay. What? Oh, okay. They've destroyed most movies nowadays, indeed. Blade Runner really differs from the dream of sheep. Well, yeah, it is. It really does, yeah. Rutger was killer in that. Yes, he was. Hello, Gotham City. How are you doing? Good man. Burt Lancaster was a good Dr. Moreau. I agree. Radamus, highly recommend the Outer Limits episode, Second Chance. Great space age monster tense action. Okay, folks. So there you go. So just to test the waters, that's what we're going to do for anybody that's just come in. So next, what was it again? June 28th, Friday, June 28th, a month from now. We're going to take a close look at H.G. Wells' The Island of Dr. Moreau and the subsequent film adaptations of the book. Okay, from the book. Kind of like as the kickoff to the Sci-Fi Horror Book of the Month Club. There you go. I think there's just some really great stuff that has been written and adapted into film that should be looked at more closely. And I think that people will be surprised as to what was left out in certain adaptations and perhaps things they added or characters they took out You know, there's a variety of things that happen, of course, in the process of adapting a story. It's absolutely incredible. So yeah, I think it could be a very interesting time. So that is going to be Friday, the 28th, on the Horror Mike Show live, The Island of Dr. Moreau. Once again, if anybody is interested in reading it, if you don't have the physical book itself, go there. It's on Gutenberg.org. The entire book. It's 185 pages. Relatively quick read, you know. It's not by no means an epic novel. And that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect for getting into the sci-fi horror book of the month club kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? I think that is quite good indeed. So there you go, folks. And once again, the 3 movies that you can watch, I'm pretty damn sure that Island of Lost Souls is on YouTube for free. Also, the 1970s adaptation is on Tubi and on YouTube for free. Now, I don't know about the 90s adaptation with Val Kilmer and Marlon Brando. It was on Tubi. I don't think it's on Tubi, though. Let me take a quick look and see what the hell is going on with that, folks. I don't think so. Yeah. No, it's on. Okay. Yeah, it was on Tubi. Now what they have is, of course, the 1977 Island of Dr. Moreau with Burt Lancaster and Michael York, which is really good. That is on Tubi. And they still have the documentary, Lost Soul, the doomed journey of Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau, the fascinating documentary on the making of that particular 90s film starring Marlon Brando and Val Kilmer. So both of those are on Tubi. And as far as finding Val Kilmer's or the Marlon Brando, look, John Frankenheimer is listed as the director. They booted Richard Stanley and Frankenheimer came in and finished the film. So he's listed as the director. So I guess you just have to call it the John Frankenheimer adaptation of The Island of Dr. Moreau, you know. I don't know where that is. It might be on YouTube. I don't know. That was the third adaptation. And yeah, that's it. As far as I know, those are the 3, you know, bona fide adaptations of the book. So we will talk about the book and we'll talk about those movies on Friday, June the 28th, folks. That's the idea here. Pop Culture Commerce is here. Hello, Pop Culture Commerce. How you doing? Love your show, Horror Mike. Thank you. I appreciate that, Pop Culture Commerce. Thank you for being here, my good man. Apex says Horror Mike's Sci-Fi Horror Book of the Month. Yeah. Okay, now you're getting me. Yeah, okay. Sci-Fi Horror Book of the Month Club. There we go. That's it. That's it. Skip the 1996 Island of Dr. Moreau. Well, you know, it's got certain things going for it. I mean, obviously the documentary. If you haven't seen the documentary Apex, it's on Tubi. It's more fascinating than that film. There's no doubt about that. But there are certain things about that movie that I liked. and certain things that were not so good at all. But in any case, folks, I digress. Tonight, it's all about Roger Corman, the king of the bees. He just shuffled off this mortal coil, folks, less than 2 weeks ago at the ripe old age of 98. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. He almost hit 100 freaking years old. The guy was born in 1926. Consider that. Just consider that for a second. I mean, he was making films, of course, directing and producing films in the early 50s. And then, of course, executive producing films all the way close to 2020, I want to say, as far as executive producer. So for almost 70 years, that guy, we're talking about hundreds of films here, folks. And we're going to take a very close look at his stuff. I've got the queue lined up here, and it's a hell of a queue. Oh my God, I've got a ton of them, folks. Wait until you check this out. There we go. That's it. Bring out. So we are going directly to the mighty Tubi. There we go. All right. And yeah, I had to add one of my favorites. That is Death Race 2000. That's the Roger Corman classic. Some of you may have seen the latter versions of Death Race with Jason Statham, which I found really entertaining as well. I thought a couple of those were very good. Corman executive produced another one called Death Race 2050, which I think we're going to take a look at. At least the trailer. It's no longer on Tubi. Maybe they'll bring it back. That would be freaking fantastic. But yeah, so let me check something out here. What the hell? Yeah, okay. All right. So in any case, Death Race 2000, folks, if you haven't seen it, it's on Tubi. You got to check it out. It is hilarious. It's great sci-fi action. As they say, in a dystopian future, an automobile race requires contestants to run down pedestrians to gain points that are tallied based upon each kill's brutality. Yes, that's the future, folks. Starring David Carradine, Sylvester Stallone, the luscious Mary Warrenoff, and, of course, Simone Griffith. And directed by the hilarious Paul Bartel, who also stars with the luscious Mary Warrenoff in Eating Raoul, another film I highly recommend. Hilarious comedy. Once again, we scroll down, we can see some recommended flicks. Now, these are not Corman, but Rollerball is on Tubi. You gotta check that out. Great science fiction flick. How should I say science? As they say, action sci-fi sport. Well, okay. All right, that's reasonable. Logan's Run, of course. Now these, these I think are just, you would totally agree, pretty much straight science fiction. You might call them sci-fi action, but they're definitely not science fiction horror by any stretch. However, the next one is, oh boy, is it, Forbidden World 1982. Woohoo! This is New World Pictures, of course, produced by Roger Corman. Not directed, but produced by. Holy shit, is this a film? This film is just insane, folks. If you haven't seen it, it is on Tubi. I'm going to show you the trailer in a second. Check this out. Terror returns to outer space when a marshal goes to a research lab on a remote planet where a genetic experiment has begun to devour its creators. Oh, yeah. There's always that problem when the experiment starts eating the creators. You know what I'm saying? And here, get ready for this trailer, folks.
Troubleshooter summoned to the forbidden world, held in an icy grip of fear by a weird biological mutation. Part alien, part human, all nightmare.
Dividing, reproducing.
This is an A-priority, high-security research facility. Actually, it's a scientist's dream.
Proto-being what? Just stick with your charter, Colby. Just figure out a way to trap it. You figure it out. I'm not going back in there.
I think we should try to communicate with it. I know it's far-fetched, but it might work.
Hey, hell!
There you go, folks. Now, that's what I call a trailer. And that's just classic Roger Corman, high concept, alien, whatever the hell else in space, you know, kind of quasi ripoff there. But it delivers all the goods. Everything is there, you know. Everything you could possibly want in a movie. You'll get that in Forbidden World. I just love that trailer. It's been years since I've seen Forbidden World. Now I've got to watch it again just to believe the damn thing. Now, this is one I didn't even realize this existed. This is relatively new from 2021. Roger Corman, the Pope of Pop Cinema. Star-studded and footage-packed documentary on Roger Corman, the legendary father of indie cinema, who gave many major Hollywood names their first breaks. Indeed. So I watched it. It's only an hour long, folks. 55 minutes. And it is on Tubi. It's definitely worth watching. There's some very interesting stuff. One of the things is that primarily it's Roger Corman that's interviewed, right? They do interview people like Peter Bogdanovich and Joe Dante, you know, and so forth. And that's very interesting, but there's a lot of interview stuff with Corman himself. And he's talking about various films and kind of, you know, some key films that he made along the way, from his first film, Monster from the Ocean Floor, that he made for $10,000. You know, and then going, of course, into the 70s grindhouse exploitation films. So it's great. It's quite good. I'm going to put it as quite good. Very much worth watching. Roger Corman, the Pope of Pop Cinema. And I've got a short trailer on it for you.
Roger Corman is definitely a legend.
Roger was always called the king of the B. He was making drive-in movies, and he was making low-budget movies.
He's such a great producer because he's famous for keeping things on budget and making $1 look like $10.
Roger Corman paved the way for that kind of big movie pop experience.
He gave a lot of people a start, whether it was Marty Scorsese or Francis Coppola or me.
Peter Bogdanovich,
Jack Nicholson, James Cameron, Ron Howard,
Joe Dante.
The whole schmear, the whole business is populated by people who went through the Corman School. It's quite a legacy.
If Roger's not the godfather of Hollywood, I don't know who is.
He was a very important teacher. I always feel I was a graduate of the Roger Corman University of Professional Filmmaking.
He would throw you in the water and say, swim. If you couldn't swim, you drowned. That's okay. Then you don't do any more pictures.
So if Roger didn't exist, the movie business would have had to invent him.
There you go, folks. Roger Corman, the Pope of Pop Cinema, recommended. It is on Tubi. Back to some early classic Corman with Attack of the Crab Monsters, of course, Creature from the Haunted Sea, as you can see there. The great thing about this lineup is that it also has the 2019 series, which is on Tubi, called Cultastic. It's all Roger and Julie Corman talking about the various films and the various periods of time that they made them. 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s stuff. So it's quite good indeed. And I only have one trailer for this series here, folks. And of course, it's got to be Attack of the Crab Monsters, for Christ's sake. I'm just going to play a bit of it for you right now.
Isolated Pacific island, the Navy lands a party of daring scientists to solve the mysterious disappearance of an entire atomic research team. Strange horror strikes first at the plane that brought them. And then, earth-shattering tremors begin tearing the island to shreds.
Okay, Professor, how are the crabs blowing up the island? I am not sure, but imagine they are able to send out arcs of heat. They are packed with it.
They can melt and fuse parts of the caverns, explode the materials contained, and bring about the slides.
There used to be ridges there for maybe 2 miles.
Now there's less than half a city block. Soon we will have nowhere to run.
Fathoms deep among the terrors of the mighty Pacific, daring skin divers brave undersea perils that stagger the imagination. Here are monsters with razor-sharp claws that hand grenades and dynamite cannot stop. Nor searing fire and flame, nor tons of crushing rocks, as mankind faces its last desperate chance.
There you go, folks. Hilariously enough, I used to have that trailer on Super 8. I remember that well. Oh, my God. I'll have to show it on the wall, 6 feet wide. It was great. Oh, good old Attack of the Crab Monsters. Now, of course, they are giant crabs. They're really intelligent. They're telepathic. And they're apparently packed with arcs of heat that allow them to explode parts of the island. They're just breaking up parts of the island and trapping the humans, in an ever decreasing area upon the island. So they're devious crabs, all right? And they can also, of course, as you can see, snap your head off. So dangerous crabs there, folks. The Attack of the Crab Monsters from 1957. All right. Well, we're staying in the 50s with the undead. This is one that I don't think a lot of people have seen. Very interesting Corman flick. Let's put it that way. I haven't seen it in a long time. From 1957, directed by Roger Corman. As it says, a sexy prostitute is transported back to the Middle Ages via hypnosis, where she finds herself facing execution for being a witch. There you go. And Allison Hayes is in this film, folks. Wait until you see a little bit of Allison Hayes that I got for you. I do have a bit of a trailer, but first let's get back to the comments because I see that people have chimed in with a lot of comments here. Good Lord, where the hell are we? Oh, there we go. Apex says Death Race 2050. Yes, it was on Tubi for a while. It's hilarious. I recommend it. I really thought it was quite funny. Dr. Frankenstein, I presume. Death Race 2000. Oh, yes. Rollerball. You and me both. Apex. It's such a great film. Great science fiction film of a possible future, or a future that we may actually partially be living in right now. Hello, Kevin. Kevin Hellon is here. Great to see you, my good man, on this fine and fiendish Friday evening. Hello, ladies. Steve Harrison. He's dreaming about the women folk there. Eric says that alien creature from Forbidden World could very well be Lizzo's hoo-ha. Yes, I went there. Oh my God. The horror. Whoa, good. Some horror in TNA brings interest in the movie. Oh, yeah, that's Forbidden World, folks. If you haven't seen it, it's on Tubi. Check it out. That is a New World Pictures Corman produced film that just delivers the goods. Okay. Corman's early success was the teen market. The drive-in, of course. Cultastic Rocks. Battle Beyond the Stars. Now that's in the lineup. Apex. That is in the lineup. Oh, yeah. Roger Corman's Nightmare Island. Magnificent Seven in Space. Creature from the Haunted Sea. Never heard of that one. If you haven't seen it, it is hilarious. It is a horror comedy with some just laugh out loud comedic stuff in it. It is just funny as hell. Funny as hell, man. The star of that film, Apex. God, though I'm not going to go to. Okay. The star of that film was also a writer. He wrote occasional screenplays for Corman as well. He was also the screenwriter of, for instance, such films as Chinatown, where he won the Academy Award for Best Screenplay. He is in Creature from the Haunted Sea. Steve says Galaxy of Terror. Oh, yes, there's Galaxy of Terror with Aaron Moran and Sid Haig. A little James Cameron action there. Apex says, hey, kids, practice safe sex and avoid the crabs. They better not explode your island. I hope Don Doler is in Mike's Sci-Fi Horror Book Club. Well, that's a good question. If he adapted a novel, he might just very well be Camp Crystal. Did he do any books to movie? Let me check that out. I'm not sure. But I'll have to look into it. I'll get back to you on that, Art. All right, folks. So we have The Undead from 1957. And I do have a trailer. Now, this is an unusual one, and you can see where Corman has an affinity for Gothic horror. No doubt about that. And of course, which led to the great Corman adaptations of Poe's stories. So let's check out the trailer for The Undead. Also, and check out Allison Hayes, folks. Check this out.
Unchain yourself from this world. Join Richard Garland, Pamela Duncan, Allison Hayes in the weird world of the undead. Where a witch of a wench gives free play to her unbridled passions and jealousies.
I could not tell you before, but now because I love thee, because I must help thee, I am a witch.
Witch?
I am thy match, witch.
You will make me a fine opponent.
No, the unearthly horror of untimely death. Face burial alive by the unfrocked monk who makes merry jests while burying the undead.
Jack Sprat would eat no fat, his wife would eat no lean, and so betwixt the two of them, they licked the coffin clean.
See the tortured undulations of the unwanted virgins. Experience the unbelievable. The undead.
Folks, no one will be seated during the tortured undulations of the unwanted virgins. Okay, that's what I'm saying right now. That is The Undead 1957 Roger Corman. Now, is that a weird one? And Allison Hayes, holy Toledo. I don't know what to say, but Allison Hayes, that AKA, she's the woman, she's Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. If you ever saw that classic 50s film, that's Allison Hayes. And she is just drop dead spectacular in The Undead. Now, this next one, Stoney, I don't know. I've not seen the film, I gotta say. But it does have that woman in it. Barbara Boucher is in this film. And she's on, I think that's her on the cover. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's Barbara Boucher on the cover. It's another Corman-produced film, such as well as with Big Bad Mama. 1975, of course, this is the spicy crime action flick produced by Corman, starring Angie Dickinson, William Shatner. Tom Skerritt is also in this film. A pistol-packing mother and her gorgeous daughters embark on a string of daring bank heists across Depression-era America in this cult classic, Big Bad Mama. And I want to say also, too, Robert De Niro is in this film. Yeah, I believe. I'm pretty sure. When he was just totally unknown, of course. But yeah, Angie Dickinson and William Shatner get it on. Oh yeah, they get it on in this film, folks. Angie, you're such a fine girl. Don't point that gun at me. Please. Something like that. I don't know. That's Big Bad Mama. Now, this is not a Roger Corman film, but it does have a fabulous cover. I think you'll all agree. Schlock, The Secret History of American Movies from 2001. I'm just going to look at that cover a little longer. Okay. Now, as it says here, the documentary, rare exploitation film clips and interviews offer a historical glimpse into the golden age of the drive-in theater when forbidden material was king. There you go. Roger Corman, Dick Miller, Peter Bogdanovich, Mila Nurmi, of course, Vampira. Horror host, obviously. And more in this particular documentary, which is currently on YouTube. And here we go. Apex mentioned it, and here it is. The 1980 Corman-produced film, Battle Beyond the Stars. Oh, yeah. Starring John Boy Walton, a.k.a. Richard Thomas. 7 mercenaries are recruited from throughout the galaxy to save a peaceful planet from the threat of a tyrant bent on dominating the universe. The Magnificent Seven, of course, all over again, as well as, well, a bunch of stuff. In any case, George Peppard, Robert Vaughn, Richard Thomas. Oh, co-directed. I didn't realize that. Okay. He did produce it. Roger Corman also co-directed this film with Jimmy Murakami. So there you go, folks. That is Battle Beyond the Stars, currently on YouTube. I don't know if I've got I don't think I have a trailer for that. I do not. Okay. And we go back to the 50s for a little bit with 1958 Corman film Teenage Caveman, starring Robert Vaughn. Let's see here. A young man defies his tribe and searches for answers in the uncharted wilderness, discovering a strange monster and knowledge from past generations. There we go, folks. That is Teenage Caveman, 1958. Oh, God. Here we go. Now, of course, I try to look for trailers that, we can do something with. Sometimes they're just too crap, like this Chrome and Hot Leather. There's a trailer on YouTube, but I thought it was like, I don't know, 140p or something. It was just so bad. I just couldn't use it, So there you go. So much for Chrome and Hot Leather from 1971. It's also just a PG-13 film, so there's not a lot of payoff. However, the 1982 film, once again, here we go, sci-fi horror, folks, Inseminoid. This is paying off. Oh, Inseminoid is definitely paying off. In the subterranean caves of a remote planet, a team of archaeologists begins getting picked off one after the other. Sorry about that. Boy, did I screw that one up. Okay, a team of archaeologists begins getting picked off after one of their crew is impregnated by an alien. Yes, you heard that right, folks. It's Inseminoid, and I do have a very short trailer for you for that.
The most dreaded fear of every woman on Earth is even more horrifying in space. The inconceivable is about to be conceived. Inseminoid, the living miracle of creation, is now the deadliest force for destruction. A different kind of alien is about to be born, and the entire universe is its victim. Outer space is expecting the unexpected. Witness the birth of Insomnoid. It is not a blessed event.
There you go, folks. That is Insomnoid, currently on Tubi. I recommend it. I mean, let's put it this way. It is definitely worth watching at least once. Okay. It's got everything. It delivers. I don't know if it's quite as good as Forbidden, whatever the hell that was. I keep wanting to say Forbidden Planet, but it's not right. Forbidden World. I don't think it quite stacks up to Forbidden World, but it's pretty damn entertaining. Let's put it that way. For, a Corman produced exploitation flick from the early 80s. Insomnoid, folks. That's what we're talking about. That leads us to 1968, the 60s, the late 60s, the turbulent late 60s, folks, and the Hellcats. Oh, yeah. Oh, we got the Hellcats coming. Now, with this film, Corman just produced it. Robert Slatzer directed this film. As it says, when an undercover cop is slain, his fiancé and soldier brother team up to infiltrate the drug-dealing biker gang known as the Hellcats. And of course, I got a little trailer for you guys.
You've seen the guys. Now, here are the psycho-mad mamas who ride with them. They're the Hellcats. Slugging, scratching, clawing. Are they girls or devils? This is Sheila, their leader. She'll cut you down or turn you on. Candy, violent, vicious. Linda, beautiful, brutal. Rita, leather on the outside, all woman on the inside. And Dee, gone, just gone. The Hellcats do what they want to, even if somebody gets killed. Want to join? Prove yourself. See the Hellcats. Trip out.
I don't feel so good.
Crash out. Knockout. Freak out. The Hellcats. They're the wildest ever. See the Hellcats from Crown International.
There you go, folks. The Hellcats. Oh, yes. 1968. Currently on Tubi. There we go. Now, this is some classic 50s Corman rock and roll film, Rock All Night, 1957, starring Dick Miller, with music by the Platters and the Blockbusters. Folks, if I saw this film, it was many years ago. Fortunately, it is on Tubi. I plan on watching it again. But once again, it was one of those films where I just could not find a decent trailer. So there you go with that. And also that goes for Joyride to Nowhere, 1977. Great poster. Crappy freaking trailers. I could not find one that was like above 120p. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just the worst. Ugh, God. Cringe. cringe bad trailers, unfortunately, for that as well. Joyride to Nowhere. Wasp Woman is still making the rounds. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this film. 1959 sci-fi horror film. Of course, directed by Corman, starring Susan Cabot. The head of a major cosmetics company experiments on herself with a youth formula, but the formula's side effects have deadly consequences. Well, yeah, she turns into a freaking wasp woman. That's what we're talking about right now. Classic Corman. A pretty damn good 50s creature feature from Corman. The Wasp Woman. Currently on Tubi, folks. And probably on YouTube, I would imagine. Oh, shit. Did I screw that up entirely? Oh, maybe I didn't. Did I? Maybe not. Okay. Yeah, 1970. Here is Bloody Mama. Now, this is, of course, I think this is Corman directed. I may be wrong. Take a look. Yep, directed by Corman, 1970. Oops. I knew they would do that. All right, there we go. Yeah, here we go. Here we go, folks. All right, Bloody Mama. A deranged matriarch leads her sadistic sons on a bloody string of robberies, kidnappings, and murders during the Great Depression. This is the one starring Shelley Winters, Robert De Niro, Bruce Dern. Pat Hingle is also in this, Robert Walden, and of course it is directed by Roger Corman. There are some really great scenes in Bloody Mama, and I do have a pretty decent trailer for it.
It wasn't for the fact that they got your blood in their veins. I would have killed you a long time ago. I would have killed you. Oh, Papa. Papa.
This is Ma Barker and her boys. They do a lot of different things. They love people, all kinds of people. And they have a mother who understands.
All right, now everybody reach for the nightgown of the Lord. Reach!
This is Bloody Mama, the incredible saga of Ma Barker and her boys, the most bloodthirsty killers in the history of crime.
We did it, boys! We did it! You just gotta ask me! You gotta
Pursued by almost every lawman in the region, they never answered for their crimes, except to Mama.
I know Horace Calvin. He'd probably turn him every way but loose.
I could put a bullet through your brain.
Oh, I hurt nobody.
Jesus lover.
Roger Corman, America's reigning young master of terror, has created the ultimate in comic horror. The ultimate killers. The ultimate mother. 4 boys only a mother could love.
You sit there, you little...
1 mother only America could produce. Shelley Winters, Pat Hingle, Don Stroud, Diane Varsi in Roger Corman's Bloody Mama.
There you go, folks. Bloody Mama. Oh, yeah. Shelley Winters just eating up the film on that one. There ain't no doubt about that. I meant that figuratively, by the way. But in any case, this is another documentary called Kings of Cult. Charles Band and Roger Corman. Now, yeah, I thought this was, yeah. The case with this one, it's kind of weird. Now, Charles Band, yeah, you know, definitely a cult filmmaker of some renown, you know, with the Full Moon features and so forth. And, of course, the Puppet Master films and all that stuff. But, yeah, he also directed this film. So it's a documentary about Charles Band and Roger Corman directed by Charles Band. Okay, let's put it that way. As it says, Mavericks of Strange Cinema, Roger Corman and Charles Band discuss their work, their fans, their careers they launched, and the future of the industry. So that documentary is now on Tubi. I think they recently added it, like, a couple of weeks ago. Kings of Cult. Now we get a little taste going into the 60s with Roger Corman and one of his adaptations of Edgar Allan Poe with Premature Burial, starring Ray Milland. As it says, an artist grows distant from his new wife as his irrational horror of premature burial consumes him. Starring Ray Milland, Hazel Court, Richard Ney, and of course directed by Roger Corman. Corman would go on to produce and direct several Poe-adapted films, including Mask of the Red Death and Tomb of Ligeia, of course, is another one. The Pit and the Pendulum, of course. So, yeah, Premature Burial. Look, it's good. I don't think it's as good as Pit and the Pendulum or Mask of the Red Death, but it's pretty good. I mean, Ray Milland. Look, he's a good actor. He kind of pulls it through. I don't think it's one of Corman's best Poe adaptations, but it's still good. Still enjoyed it. Here we go with some just classic late 60s going into the 70s. It's all got that exploitation grindhouse vibe, folks. First with The Devil's Angels from 1967. This also produced by Corman, but not directed by Corman. Starring John Cassavetes. The rape of a local woman ends in an uneasy truce between a looting, terrorizing motorcycle gang and a small-town sheriff, and starts a full-scale war. Devil's Angels. And then, of course, we have the classic 1970 flick, The Student Nurses. He did a lot of these. As it says, comedy, 1970. The romantic lives of four sexy young nurses in groovy and sunny California are filled with drama and special attention to their men of interest. There you go, folks. Just one of those classic early 70s low-budget flicks from the house of Corman. And The Big Dollhouse is another one. 1 year later, 1971. Now, this is a kind of a women in prison type of film. As it says, fed up with the abuse, 5 women plot to escape a Filipino prison by taking their brutal warden hostage with the help of 2 reluctant fruit vendors. Oh, yes, the 2 reluctant fruit vendors. But, of course, Pam Grier stars in this film. It was also directed by Jack Hill, produced by Corman, obviously. One of my favorite Corman-produced films right here on Tubi, Hollywood Boulevard, 1976. I've already covered this film before. It is a hilarious satire on what we would call off-Hollywood filmmakers, right? The low-budget indie grindhouse exploitation filmmakers. It's really quite good. This was co-directed by Alan Arkush and Joe Dante. Yes, early Joe Dante here, folks. Starring the vivacious Mary Warrenoff, Paul Bartel, and George Wagner, amongst other people. But, and of course, Candace Rylson is in this. A Midwestern ingenue, Candace Rylson, moves to Hollywood and rivals a B-movie queen, played by Mary Warrenoff, in low-budget quickies. It's pretty hysterical. Dick Miller is also in this film. It's funny as hell. Quite amusing indeed. This film is one that Ron Howard talks about in that documentary about Roger Corman. Eat My Dust, of course, 1976, directed by Charles B. Griffith, starring Ron Howard. Now, Charles B. Griffith was a great writer. He wrote a lot of the horror comedies for Corman in the 1950s, including Little Shop of Horrors, The Creature from the Haunted Sea, Bucket of Blood, and several others. Just great horror comedy writing from somebody I consider to be one of the masters of that subgenre. So he directed this one. I don't know how that came to pass, but he ended up directing Eat My Dust. When Hoover and speed demon Darlene become co-riders in a red-hot car race, the reckless fun soon accelerates into a trunk full of hot pursuits. Okay, that's an interesting description. And that is Eat My Dust. And of course, 1978, keeping it in the 70s, folks. It is Joe Dante surfacing with just such a great horror comedy. Well, I guess what you could call a science fiction horror comedy. They do label that as such here. Piranha, directed by Joe Dante, starring Bradford Dillman, Kevin McCarthy, and, of course, Heather Menzies Ulrich is in this film. When flesh-eating piranhas are accidentally released into a summer resort's rivers, the guests become their next meal. Dick Miller is also in this as the owner of the resort. And there are some classic scenes. Keenan Wynn has kind of a smallish role, but it's pretty good in this film. And I love it. Piranha is really quite the flick. And I've got a short trailer for you. Let's check it out.
Who could have imagined they were there? Who could have predicted they would attack? And now, who would survive? Your Honor, they're here. Your Honor, they're hungry.
What's the matter with you?
Your Honor, they're unstoppable.
Stop that! Hey, keep your hand out of the water.
What's wrong with the water?
The water is filled with carnivorous fish.
Your Honor, they call them the devilfish because wherever they go, hell waits below.
They breed like flies. There'll be no way to stop them.
Suddenly, no one is safe. And everyone must be warned. The water is now a human death trap.
2 people have been killed up there, and more have been killed all along the river.
You gotta believe us.
These are the man-eaters who go beyond the bite of all other jaws. Sharks come alone. Piranha come in thousands. Crazed by the scent of blood, they live by the taste of flesh. With razor teeth, they can strip a man to the bone in a frozen instant of terror. Piranha.
There you go, folks. A little Piranha trailer. I don't think that's the best trailer. I've seen others that are better. I don't know why I picked that one. It just seemed, I don't know, it just kind of lacked a bit of pacing to it or something. I'm not sure, but I still love the film. Highly recommended. It is on Tubi now. If you haven't seen the original Piranha, it's great. Now, Piranha 3D is also extremely entertaining. And of course, 3 Double D. I believe that at least one of those, maybe both of those, are also on Tubi. Highly recommended. You can't lose with any of the Piranha films, folks. And of course, Rock and Roll High School. Now, I purposely did not get a trailer for this one because too much music. They would yank the damn program off in about 2 seconds. But highly recommended. If you haven't seen it, 1979, of course, PJ Souls and the Ramones. Oh, yes, a group of rock music loving students with the help from the Ramones take over their school to stand against its newly strict administration. And of course, who's the strict administration? Why, that's none other than Mary Warrenoff, who just really plays a strict principal with such gusto. Of course, this film also stars Clint Howard. Yes, Clint Howard. Vincent Van Patten. And, PJ Souls, as I mentioned, the Ramones, and Mary Warrenoff. Paul Bartel is also in this film, directed by Alan Arkush and produced by Roger Corman. One of the greats, folks. It's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. Rock and Roll High School. The next one is just a killer. We go 1 year into ahead of Rock and Roll High School and land in, well, scarifying waters with Humanoids from the Deep, 1980. I love this film. It's one of those flicks. I don't know. I've seen it many times. I dig it. I like the creatures. I think they're overall pretty well done. Of course, Doug McClure, starring Doug McClure. In this film, a fisherman played by Doug McClure and a scientist, Ann Turkle, fight back when mossy sea monsters assault women. What's going on? They're mating with women. Of course, Vic Morrow is also in this. That is Humanoids from the Deep, folks. If you haven't seen it, what the hell are you waiting for? I've got a very short trailer for you.
Humanoids from the Deep. They began in the water. They're not human, but they hunt human women. Not for killing, for mating.
Why the girls?
It's my theory that these creatures are driven to mate with man now in order to further develop their incredible evolution.
Humanoids from the Deep. Anywhere you run, any place you hide, any time you stop, they will find you. Humanoids from the Deep.
That's a pretty tasty trailer right there, folks. Not R-rated, damn close to it, but pretty tasty. It's delivering some goods. Not like the Forbidden World trailer, but it's a good one. And of course, it is Roger Corman produced goodness from 1980. Highly recommended. It is now on Tubi. Now, Corman, he didn't just do the exploitation films. He also liked some foreign films. As a matter of fact, he was rather well known for distributing popular foreign films in the United States. And one such film was Fitzcarraldo, starring Klaus Kinski. It's about true story about this guy, of course, directed by Werner Herzog. True story about this guy that, was absolutely obsessed with bringing opera to South America. And so he brings this freaking boat over the Andes, many people die. It's just like an odyssey, kind of like an odyssey of horror. In reality, what happens with this guy is he's trying to bring this boat over the Andes to bring opera to South America, and it's quite good. If I like Werner Herzog films generally speaking, and this is a pretty good one. I think it's rather lengthy. Yeah, it's over 2.5 hours, but it's well worth it, folks. Claudia Cardinale is also in this film. So I do recommend it. It is currently on the tube. Let me get back to the chat. And I noticed some people have chimed in. Good Lord. Let's get on back here. See what's going on. Okay. Steve Harrison says, looked like it had tatas. Allison Hayes. Yes, Apex. Allison Hayes. Kevin Helland, was Dementia 13 a Corman-produced film? And it was Francis Ford Coppola's first film. Matter of fact, Corman and Coppola and a bunch of people, Corman was making another film. I want to say it was in Italy. I may be wrong. It was let's say they were in Europe. They were making a film, and they had time and a little money left over, so he allowed Francis Ford Coppola to make Dementia 13. So they went to some location, they made the film, and the rest is history. It became a classic, And that was on Tubi for a while as well. Give me the 50-foot woman, especially if it's Allison Hayes. Gave me nightmares as a kidling. Robert Vaughn was in The Magnificent Seven. Magnificent Man from U.N.C.L.E. I watched Inseminoid last week. Lots of action. It was good. Yes, I concur. It is definitely worth seeing, folks. It's on Tubi. If you want a good sci-fi horror exploitation flick, check out Inseminoid and Forbidden World. You may want to watch them back to back if you can take it. Okay, that's quite a powerful double bill of sci-fi horror exploitation. Cycle Mad Mamas. I love it. Oh yes, Corman loved the cycle flicks, the Hell's Angels flicks, and so forth, and motorcycle mamas, as it were. Cycle Mad Mamas. Wasp Woman. Wasp Woman Pelosi. I've seen Wasp Woman, kind of funky and scary. Yes, it is kind of an odd film. I believe Wasp Woman was one of Corman's films in the public domain. You are correct, Eric Boy. That's why you see it everywhere. That's why every freaking horror host has an episode with the Wasp Woman. This is in the public domain, along with Creature from the Haunted Sea, I believe Bucket of Blood. A lot of those 50s films are in public domain. Stephen Ross Mitchells is here. Hello, Stephen Ross Mitchells. Good to see you. I don't know if have you been on the show before? Been in the chat? Welcome, in any case, my good man. Big Bad Mama and Bloody Mama. Hello, PBR Street Gang. PBR is with us tonight, folks. Hey, hey, hey. Hello, Horror Mike. Hi to all in chat. All right. Apex says, and Turkle, yeah. We want surface women. I love humanoids from the deep. Yes. It's just one of those flicks, man. I dig it. The creatures are really cool. It's really well done. Got a substantial amount of TNA. It's just a great sci-fi horror exploitation flick. So basically, they're like Lovecraft's Deep Ones. Yes, that PBR, that's kind of, as a matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the writers were, at least partially influenced by, Shadow over Innsmouth or Dagon. Would not surprise me whatsoever. Horror Mike's website, horroranthologymovies.com. Thanks for the plug, Eric. I watched a doc about Klaus Kinski. Yes, it covered his antics while filming Fitzcarraldo. Still scratching my head about that dude. He's got some great. Oh yeah, Klaus Kinski is just out of it. I think that documentary is called My Favorite Fiend, and it's about the relationship between Herzog and Kinski, and it is hilarious. He's crazy, and also, yeah, Kinski is also in this film called Titan Find, or AKA Creature. Another one of those, just like Forbidden World and Seminoid, sci-fi horror exploitation flick, and he's pretty bizarre in it as well. His daughter was a knockout cat people. Yes, Natasha Kinski. Eric Boyd says the tribal people that had small roles and were extras in Fitzcarraldo offered to eliminate Kinski because he was such an asshole to everyone. It's just an interesting thing I just want to say, folks. I went to Iquitos where they filmed part of the film. When I was in Peru, living in Peru, I ended up going to Iquitos. You cannot get to Iquitos, this town, which is in the Amazon, by road or plane. You can't. The only way you can get there is by boat. And so in any case, I went there, and they've got bars along the Amazon River, and one of the bars is called Fitzcarraldo's, and they have photos of from the film and old photos from the time of Fitzcarraldo all over the walls and stuff. Pretty damn cool. Dementia 13 is on Tubi. Excellent. Dave James is here. Hello, Dave James. Humanoids for the win. I concur, my good man. All right, folks. Yeah, okay, what we're looking at here is 1990s Watchers 2. Now, they don't have Watchers on Tubi, and I didn't look to see, but I do know one thing. Watchers 2 was either produced or executive produced by Corman, right? Now, the Watchers series, that was originally a novel called Watchers by Dean R. Koontz, who also wrote the novel Demon Seed, which was made into the film Demon Seed. So this is the sequel to Watchers. I liked Watchers. I thought it was a very interesting film. It had some really great moments to it, really interesting. The creatures in the Watchers films weren't that great. I think if they had more of a budget, it would have been a much better film. It was just that I don't know, the creatures just really weren't that great looking, kind of a letdown. Otherwise, I thought, at least Watchers and Watchers 2 were good, and Watchers 2 is on Tubi. I would kind of recommend that you see Watchers, the original film. Now I did notice that it was on YouTube. Okay. So before watching Watchers 2, you may want to watch Watchers. I guess that's what I'm getting at here, folks. But in any case, let me get to the description of this. This is also sci-fi horror. Now, this would be one, folks, because Dean R. Koontz wrote the novel, and this was made into a film, obviously. A genetically re-engineered golden retriever develops a psychic link with a monster created in a lab experiment, which goes deadly awry. So that's Watchers 2. It's kind of similar with Watchers, the original. It's just kind of a different setup. But in this one, Mary Warrenoff is also in this. Boy, does she get around. I'm telling you, Mark Singer is in this, Tracy Scoggins. And I thought it was good. It was entertaining. Maybe not quite as good as the first one. But, you know, it's on Tubi. And it's got its moments. Let's put it that way. Now, the next one. Okay, you guys, if you haven't seen Brain Dead from 1990, you got to see this film. Okay, check this out. It is just great science fiction horror. First. Secondly, all right, the description. An experimental operation plunges a brilliant neurosurgeon into a mind-bending nightmare that blurs the line between reality and delusion. Check out the cast, folks. Bill Pullman, Bill Paxton, Bud Cort, George Kennedy. Are you kidding me? It is brilliant. The screenplay, this is what happened. Roger Corman found a long-lost screenplay written by the one and only Charles Beaumont. Charles Beaumont wrote several fantastic original Twilight Zone episodes for Rod Serling. He was a great writer. I've got, I believe, 2 collections of his short stories. This guy, unfortunately, it was a weird story with Charles Beaumont. I believe he died at the age of 37 from a rapid aging disease. Believe it or not. Apparently, by the time he was 37, he looked like he was 80 years old. And he died. So that's the type of shit that happens in life, folks. You know, unfortunately for Charles Beaumont, because he was one hell of a writer, and he contributed in his short time on Earth to a lot of great screenplays, teleplays, obviously for Twilight Zone. But for this film, this is a film that it's horror science fiction. It's got some comedic elements to it. But it's something totally different. It kind of like, in a way, it makes you think about, I don't want to get too heavy with this, but it kind of makes you think about the meaning of life itself, what it really entails, the gravity and the non-gravity of it. That's as good as I can really put it. It's such a great film. I mean, if anything, it might suffer from some budgetary constrictions, but it, as far as science fiction horror goes, it is a doozy. I cannot recommend this film enough. I do have a trailer for it. Check this out, folks.
From camp? How's every little floating thing?
There is a limit, even to the imagination.
Halsey was working on something big, cornerstone technology.
Where our greatest creations meet our deepest fears.
People are so anxious to change their faces. What about their personalities, their very souls?
You are about to go beyond that limit.
The new you from Eunice.
But even the greatest discoveries
You have a special brain, a very special brain.
have a price.
We need those numbers.
Your life.
Want him brain dead. Who said anything about brain dead? Who the hell are you? What do you want? You could be the patient, and Halsey could be the doctor. Just give us those numbers, Halsey.
Just burn out the core.
He's in the hospital.
A little shock therapy will help you relax.
Help me. I'm not dead yet.
Because you're not dead.
Don't let them take you into surgery.
Until you're brain dead.
There you go, folks. Brain Dead, 1990, Charles Beaumont screenplay. Great cast. Bill Pullman, Bill Paxton, George Kennedy, Bud Cort. Highly recommended. I've got this film on DVD. I've seen it probably 10 times. It's one of those films. It's just a great, great science fiction horror film. Highly recommended. Check it out on Tubi. Now, I'm ending this Corman lineup with Sharktopus for a couple of reasons. One, I do like the film. I got to admit, I like Sharktopus because it's such a ridiculous movie. Eric Roberts is in it, of course. It's from 2010. And it's one of those films, one of the only films on Tubi, playing on Tubi right now, where it's an executive produced Corman film, right? From the 21st century, right? So there's the whole thing. I had to bring at least one film from the 21st century that he had something to do with. And that's Sharktopus from 2010. Man, I mean, it's a shark and an octopus. What do you want? Horror sci-fi action. Oh, boy. It is known as S-11, a diabolical hybrid of shark and octopus created by genetic scientist Nathan Sands. And it is in the U.S. Navy's next, and it is the U.S. Navy's next super weapon. Yes, there you go, folks. Yeah. Starring Eric Roberts. I don't know. I've seen it a couple of times. I think it's hilarious. Just there's something endearing about Sharktopus, the creature itself. I don't know. It's just one of those things, but there's so many shark movies. As far as like the 21st century shark films, and I think Sharktopus is one of the better ones. I don't know if that's really saying much, but I don't know. I liked it. It was I had it's a good time if you don't want to take anything very seriously. Check out Sharktopus, for Christ's sake. Now let me get back to the chat here. See what's going on. Now, where did I leave off? Okay, what? PBR Street Gang says, hey, I'd forgotten I'd seen Brain Dead. Great flick. Yes, it's really quite good. I mean, it's just one of those films out of left field, folks, that there's something about it that is so compelling. Without getting too philosophical, it's a film about life and death that may make you understand some stuff. I don't know, without being dogmatic, without making any judgments or anything. It's sci-fi horror. There's no doubt about that. But God, what a screenplay. What a story. It is just Just fantastic. Highly recommended. Marcus Aurelius is here with us tonight. Hello, Marcus. I hope they follow up with Cocaine Sharktopus. They might. I wouldn't be surprised, Marcus. Eric says, everyone have a great weekend. Gots to go. Thank you, Eric, for being here, my good man, and have a great weekend. I will talk to you soon. All right, folks. Well, that concludes my tribute, my little tribute to Roger Corman. Folks, I hope you enjoyed that tremendously, or as much as I did, at least. You know, it's one of those things. I don't know about you guys, but it's Corman is just, he's one of the filmmakers that, well, he had a big influence on me, and it's hard. You know, I think that it's, as far as films, at least films of the latter 20th century, everybody's seen a Corman film. You know, whether you know it or not, whether he directed it, produced it, or executive produced it, the guy is just all over the freaking place. You know, his influence is immeasurable. So that is the great, the one and only Roger Corman. We salute him tonight, my good fiends. And once again, I raise my Foster's beer to toast the one and only Roger Corman, folks. There we go. PBR says, Cocaine Sharks, it's a thing. Cheers, Roger Corman. Linda. Yes, Linda is coming. Yes. He is a legend. Yes, he is. Apex, you got a show tonight? Or is that tomorrow? Yes, it is tomorrow night at 8 p.m., folks. Apex, drop your link in the chat real quick there, Apex. Apex has got a show tomorrow night at 8 p.m., folks. Check it out. Drop that link. Or just click on his name and it should take you to his channel. One of the two. Linda. All right. Maybe that's it. Nope. All right, folks. Well, I hope you enjoyed the show tonight. Our little look at Roger Corman. Join us next week for another show, Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Horror Mike Show. I hope you all have a great weekend. And as we traditionally do here, at the end of the shows, we present the Starfires and their great rendition of Linda. So everyone have a great evening and great weekend. And I will see you guys next week. Take care. Linda, she's a